Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning to our speakers. I'm very excited to have this session today. I see people are still signing in, so we'll take the next couple of seconds allowing people to join the conversation. In the meantime, I would like to run some household, remarks about today's session before we'll start with introducing the topic and the speakers. This session is being recorded. It's going to be later on available on the CICC YouTube channel. We are going to allow questions using the Q&A chat box that you have at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to send us your questions. We will try to do everything that we can to answer as many questions as possible. This is a webinar format, but we do see all of you and we are very excited that you are joining us. While we let our attendees to join the session, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Sharon Vanek. I'm the Executive Director of the California-Israel Chamber of Commerce, known for many people as the CICC. The CICC is a non-for-profit organization, been around for over 20 years now. Really with the aim of providing opportunities for businesses, for thought leaders, for researchers, and anyone that has interest from Israel to meet their counterparts in California, and of course also the other way around. We are also introducing opportunities, ideas, technologies coming from Israel to the California market. We are active in many tech-related industries. And I know that a lot of people know Israel as the startup nation, but we are here today not just to brag about Israeli technologies, I'll put it this way, but really to talk about a very important issue that both Israel and California, and unfortunately also some other places around the world suffer for. And this is the lack of water and how do we deal with scarce water resources, with growing drought around California. And for that matter, we have some guests today to help us discover what can be done with new technologies for water management. I want to start by introducing our moderator for today. We have Ken Zuckerberg. Hi, Ken, how are you today?
Hi, Sharon, good morning, and good morning to everyone on the line.
Fantastic. So Ken is a senior analyst with CoBank, and we are very excited to have you leading the conversation today. I'll let you start with introducing the speakers that you have on your panel today.
Terrific.
And we'll take it from there.
Wonderful. So as Sharon mentioned, and thank you for the introduction, my name is Ken Zuckerberg, and at CoBank I research a number of sectors ranging from grain to ethanol. As everyone on the call knows, water is one of the most important inputs in life, let alone in agriculture, and oftentimes we take it for granted until there's a problem. Just very quickly before introducing the speakers, I always like to start out with the objectives, and hopefully we will achieve these today. It's really to, in deeper terms, think about and discuss what are the most important issues related to water and farming. How are Israel and the US working together to solve some of these challenges? And importantly, what additional opportunities exist which benefit growers, consumers, lenders, investors, and Mother Earth herself? And then what actually are smart water systems for ag, and how do we get users comfortable with adopting them? So again, I can't answer these questions myself. They're too broad, but fortunately our three panelists are here to assist. Don Cameron is the president of the California State Board of Food and Ag. For 30 plus years, Don has been managing thousands of acres in California. His Terra Nova Ranch is that property, and Don brings both perspective on conventional, organic, and biotech field crops. He serves on various committees and focused on water and other issues. I'm very pleased to have Oleg Korol with us, CEO of Tevatronic, an Israeli startup that develops autonomous irrigation systems designed to identify how much water plants need and then stop the flow when it reaches that precise amount. Very interesting. Oleg brings his computer science skills into ag, and he also brings knowledge of artificial intelligence, bringing AI solutions to organic problems. Last but not least, John Vikupitz. John and I met some years back. John is president of CropX Technologies Limited. That's an Israeli middle stage startup specializing in on-farm precision irrigation systems. John sits in Colorado, very close to CoBank. He has an agricultural engineering degree, and he brings a tremendous amount of ag tech experience to this discussion. Previously, he worked for a company that most folks know of, Netafim. He was president of their USA division. And with my formal remarks out of the way, why don't we dig into questions? Boy, Don, California has one or two issues related to water, doesn't it?
You know, we never lack issues in water among many of the other issues we face here in California. You know, we're looking at probably one of the most severe droughts that we've seen here in California. We've become a state that has flooding, followed by droughts, followed by flooding, followed by longer droughts. We typically get our water from the Sierra Nevada snowfall.
Right.
That will melt in the spring, fill our reservoirs, and then gets moves through the distribution system that we have here in California, and the majority of the water falls in the northern half of the state,
right?
And really the majority of the agriculture is in the southern half of the state. So, conveyance, moving it from one location to another is always challenging. We have to move the water about 700 miles from one end of the state to the other through the California aqueduct.
Right.
We have other conveyances, but that is the main conveyance structure through the state. But it has to go through the Delta, which is where the confluence of the Sacramento and the San Joaquin rivers join. And in that one region, it's very environmentally sensitive. We have we have king salmon, and we have Delta smelt that are both endangered species. So we have requirements to provide not only water, but cool water during critical periods to the mainly for the salmon. But it's always a challenge moving water from one end of the state to the other.
So Don, so interesting, right? What you said to start out, that it's a state that has the extremes of water, flooding and drought, and then of course sensitive systems, ecosystems, fish and human needs, and obviously needs for agriculture. Wow. Oh, and besides that, I think a lot of us forget just how big California is. So the logistical challenges are there. As you over the past 3 to 6 months, I know we talked in our pre-call about some of the positive initiatives and some funding that might be coming into ag. Can you talk a little bit about that, and what kind of scenarios might unfold as the state navigates through the current difficult situation?
Right. The governor, Governor Newsom, is really very aware of the drought situation here in California and the effect in agriculture. And recently, about 2 weeks ago, announced $5.1 billion that will come not only to agriculture, but to clean drinking water supplies for the rural communities, repair of canals that have either had issues with subsidence from over pumping of the groundwater, to flood risk. So we know that there will be additional money coming, but as you know, money doesn't bring you water. If you don't have the water in the state, it's planning for the future, and we know that this is going to be critical. I guess we start looking at some of the money. Some of it's going to be going to efficient irrigation systems. Like I say, part of it will be conveyance, but part of it is going to habitat restoration, which we know means the F word. That is fallowing.
John, I come from New Jersey, and the F word has a different meaning here, so I'm very, very happy that it's fallowing that we're talking about. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely is fallowing. There are projections that up to 1 million acres of California farmland will have to be idled in the future, and that's a combination of two things. One, the drought. There's no question that is surface water deliveries south of the Delta, but the other key ingredient in this is sustainable groundwater management. Right. This was passed in 2014 and is now taking effect. We know that certain irrigation districts, we call them groundwater sustainability agencies. We created a whole new level of local decision making. And some of them, one of the largest, just to the west of me, Westlands Irrigation District, has proposed next year only allowing 1.3 acre feet of groundwater per acre to be pumped within their GSA, within their district. So not only do we have a drought, a severe drought, we're in the top 5 of, in the last 125 years, but now we're seeing pressure and cutbacks in the groundwater that's been available to growers over the years, pretty much unlimited, is now being controlled and will be limited. First in the critically overdrafted basins, but it'll affect the majority of California in the future.
Got it. Well, Don, thanks for the sober and candid assessment of the situation. John, you've spent time in this industry, and I guess I wanted to ask your perspective. How does California look today versus other times that you've been serving that market? From a service provider's perspective, it sounds like there are some definitive problems which ought to present opportunities. Can you talk a little bit about how CropX looks at it and what you're doing in the market?
Sure, happy to. I think from my history in California, the state is actually very progressive and very far advanced compared to other parts of the country. So that's a positive. If you look at statistics that are available from the USDA, the adoption of technology by California producers is actually at least 4 to 5 times greater than other states with with similar water challenges. I think that's a combination of the fact that Don described earlier, the fact that the state has seen these cycles of drought, flood, drought ever since I grew up in California. And it forced growers over time to adopt technology to better manage their irrigation schemes. And I think in addition to that, the different commodity trade associations have been very, progressive in promoting technology to their grower members. I'd call out the California Almond Board. There's a wine grape association. There's a number of associations that actually have committees focused on technology development, promoting technology. I think Western Growers is another great example with their tech center in Salinas. So growers have access not only to trade associations that are promoting technologies for growers to consider using. California also has a very well-developed network of very professional irrigation distributors that provide growers with technology that they've vetted themselves and they feel comfortable with. So California is actually in a pretty good spot, despite the governmental challenges and the water availability challenges. I think producers generally have access to what they need to do things very well. And I would say, based on my experience, that growers in California, by and large, there's some outliers, but by and large, they are leading, maybe the world in terms of technology use on farm. I think in terms of CropX, we focus on providing in-soil data. It's still a very thinly adopted technology throughout the US and worldwide. And our view is irrigation still has a long way to go, generally speaking, in terms of precision application. Many growers, outside of the California market that I just described to you, irrigate based on when the canal or the ditch system provides water. They irrigate based on plant appearance, which is never a reliable indicator of the plant's health. And in the process, what we find is a lot of growers are flushing nutrients out of the root zone. They're putting on too much water, and so they're economically harming themselves. And so what we try to do through our offering of sensor and platform is give them the very best available information, the most detailed and accurate information, so they can either make the decision when to irrigate for themselves, or they can allow machine learning or an artificial intelligence system to make that decision for them. So I think the future's still very strong, and the market still, very, very much presents a great opportunity in California. But I just have to call out, California growers have done a great job with managing water so far, in my estimation.
Well, it's great to hear, because obviously, as you said, it's been scarce at different times, and right now we're in a scarcity period. Oleg, when you looked at tackling this challenge in your company, Israel itself is just a wonderful case study in terms of lack of water 60-70 years ago, becoming in a water surplus. So when you think about California relative to that Israel lens, can we do this here? Can we fix it? And maybe talk a little bit about your vision and view for Tevatronic and how you see the sort of leveraging of that technology to California.
So, as I see it, anything can be fixed with enough on. With enough, if you want it enough, you can fix it. But the question is, how do you approach it? Of course, we in Tevatronic do not deal with all of the aspects that Don talked about in water. We don't deal with aquaculture. We don't deal with any of the things around. We deal specifically with crops. And I think that with CropX, we have a lot of similarities in our approach to what the issues are with the excessive irrigation. In most cases, all of the approaches of looking at the plant and trying to assess something by just touching the soil, as most of the farmers are trying to teach us that it needs to be done. You touch the soil, you see how it looks, and this is the correct irrigation. Unfortunately, it's not as simple. But together with this, there is another issue, which is rarely discussed when we're talking about technologies and water saving, et cetera, and application of technologies to water. And this is the question of who the farmers are, right? Eventually, you're talking about people that work in fields, and we know that the statistics says that the average age of the farmer goes up. And with this comes a certain reluctance to use technologies, right? So telling someone my age that whatever will be run by AI and this AI will do the job for you, and it sounds great to me. I would be happy to use whatever has AI in it. But I think that there is a lot more reluctance at the average ages of the farmers anywhere in the world. Actually, today, it's not only a problem of California. Everywhere in the world, the age of the farmer goes up. Okay. Now, the question is not how you provide only the information to this farmer. Basically, as much as I like to learn, I don't see myself relearning everything about my profession at the age of 55. Okay, I might have to do this, but it's not something that I'm looking forward for, right? And we are at the stage where we as engineers created a lot of solutions that can really change the way farming is done. It can really help. But the question is, can we find the audience on the other side that will be willing to go with us and to help us help them, basically, right? And this question is a complex question. And we're not looking at this only as, you know, you provide the technology and you teach the person that if this chart goes up and this chart goes down and the third chart goes through the middle, then you should irrigate, okay? Usually this is something I can say to a stockbroker, not to a farmer, okay?
Right.
And look, we don't only work in developed countries, and we also work in less developed countries like India. And to say to an Indian farmer that he needs to monitor several parameters, and once those parameters behave in a very certain way, then he needs to irrigate, is something that is almost unfeasible to be done on scale, okay?
Right.
If everybody is doing this, that would work. But you cannot get everybody to do this. This is just too many different people, too many different, you know, reluctance to use technology. And
right.
This is why we believe that the step of data collection as just pure data collection should be stepped over. It should go from no automatic to fully automatic. Okay?
So Oleg, I'll just interrupt you there for a second. I always think about one of the most wonderful engineering creations is the, you know, the on my wall, I set the temperature to 72 or 70 in the summer and the air conditioner goes on. And I don't have to know what happened, who developed it. I just know the outcome. And I think about ag tech. And the barrier that you talked about, I think, is it's not so automatic yet. And then the other part is that a lot of times when the development of these great tools are happening and the grower is not part of the conversation, I'll ask Don if this is true, but I would think if I were in the grower position, I'd sort of think that's not really nice. Let me be part of this. So Don, how do you react a little bit to Oleg, and you actually have been rather progressive on your farm. I just thought it might be a nice parallel to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, thanks, Ken. Yeah, we have seen Silicon Valley discovered us probably about 5 years ago, and we had a parade of new technology coming through the door on a regular basis, and we did go through quite a few different firms. We met with them. Those that would tailor their product to fit our needs are the ones that we worked with. And we saw a lot of them that you know, if you fit in their box, that was fine. And if you didn't, then you couldn't really adopt their technology on farm because each farmer is a little different. And, you know, we have a lot of variety here in California. We grow over 400 crops, different crops. So, but we're always willing to look at new technology and see if it has a fit for us, if it's economically going to help us long term, and if it fixes a need we have. I mean, we have a lot of needs here, and a lot of them still have to do with irrigation. But the companies that would actually sit down, tweak their program to where it would benefit us, but not only us, we know that there's a lot of other farmers like us. So it actually helps build their system and makes them have a stronger product in the end.
So I like that it's a very collaborative approach, and then that strengthens, you know, for argument's sake, it would strengthen what Oleg and John's business, the deliverable, it is sort of custom tailored to the farm, and then, you know, the learnings there. Well, that to me is a very reasonable path. Sharon, did we have any questions that came in? I wanted to make sure that people knew we're delighted to take audience questions as opposed to mine the whole time. So please let us know.
Sure. I actually have, first of all, a follow-up question to your question, going back to Dawn, knowing that Dawn, holds two hats in this conversation. There is the official hat, and there is also the farmer, the grower, as a president of the Terra Nova farm. And also reflecting back on what Oleg was talking about. So my question for you is, what will be your advice for technology, doesn't have to be startup, but, companies in general? How can they get in touch with the different growers? Where are the places for them to meet so they can actually work with them, as you mentioned, to develop those technologies? Specifically when we talk about Israeli, tech companies there on the other side of the world, what will be the best practice for them to come to California?
So what I've seen that really does work, I mean, we've had people call us, cold call, talk about what their product does. If it's interesting, we invite them to have a meeting on farm. But you heard earlier about Western growers. They have an innovation center. A lot of times we don't have time to meet with everybody, and we actually may miss a very good product that's available there. We do get introductions through the Western Growers Innovation Center, through some of the other associations that represent the crops we grow, have been very proactive. If they find something or hear of something that may benefit their growers, we'll listen to them. But word of mouth too. I mean, if we have something that works and works well, believe me, we spread the word for the company. We do aerial photos, and I visited another farm in Northern California last week, and the introduction was made through a technology company that we were both using, and come to find out that we also use several other applications, one being the aerial photos, NDVI and water stress, that we just have been using for several years now. So I think growers talk. We know what works and what doesn't work and what fits. So I think that's how I'd approach it.
I see. So just for the sake of our audience, if anybody needs introduction for Western growers and the other association, we invite you to get in touch with the CICC, and we can help you with those introductions. We work very closely with the entire team at the Innovation Center for Western growers, and also some other associations like the one in Fresno, the Water, Energy and Technology one, and some others. So for our audience, if you need any introduction, please feel free to contact the CICC, and we will be happy to do it. And in our last conversation around AgTech, we talked about distribution channels, and I think the takeaway from that conversation was exactly what you said, Dawn. Farmers do talk to one another, so you just need one champion to be happy with your technology, and they will help you carry the word around. We have a question from our audience. There is an assistant professor, plant protection in one of the colleges in Chennai, India, who is on the line with us, and he is asking why there are smart systems of water in agriculture are required. Why do we, and I think this question will go back to Oleg, why do they need smart systems?
So
what's wrong with the old ones?
It's very interesting to get a question from Chennai in this specific forum, because we specifically operate in Chennai, near Chennai.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I will tailor my answer specifically to this region. So I'm sorry if not all Californian will get what I'm talking about. And the answer will be around sugarcane. And the answer is very simple. With our fully autonomous system that we operated there in the last almost 2 years, this is the third Raton that we're doing there. We are showing significant improvement both in growth, in productivity of the crop, in sugar recovery, If the person that asks the question is familiar, then we're working with the EID Perry in the area. And the answer is you need those technologies to be able to do more with less. You have to be able to move forward. And specifically for India, I know this is not the discussion here, and so I'm sorry to use the airways for this, but okay. Specifically for India, there is a huge problem of the way that the land is divided between farmers in India, and this limits the ability to get to real scale agriculture there. So every field is very small, and there is one farmer that deals with this very small field. You cannot use heavy machinery, so the productivity, of course, falls because you cannot be more industrial, and that has additional deficits like not having specialty personnel on the farm like we're used to seeing in California or in Israel, where you have an agronomist that can come over, etc., etc. So all of those issues can be at least partially solved by technologies that will bring the knowledge to the farmer without involving the farmer in the knowledge. That's the important part.
Thank you for that. Ken, I'm giving back the mic to you.
Thank you, Sharon. Very interesting questions. John, maybe let's unpack a few issues together. You know, I look at the U.S. and certainly the specialty crops are different than the row crops, both in terms of where they are grown and obviously the water requirements and then the access to water. Does CropX focus sort of across the board on multiple crops? And if so, are the is the secret sauce different for California table grapes versus Iowa corn, or is the ultimate system very similar and then the technology informs what is needed? That's my first question. And then I also wanted to dig in a little bit on nutrient runoff after we get to talk about this.
Yeah, sure. So the algorithms are tailored for each specific crop, and you have to do this because the growth stages and the physiology of the plants all vary. So what we would recommend for a corn plant in Nebraska would be very much different than what we would recommend for wine grapes in California. So yeah, it has to be tailored very specifically to the crops. Our algorithms, I'm assuming Oleg's are the same, are very much tailored to the specific soil types, crops. We take weather data. All of this has to go in to provide a reasonably accurate recommendation or prescription for the farmer to follow. So it is very much regionalized and crop specific. In terms of where we focus, pretty much everywhere in the world, I would say that right now, North America, South America, Australia, New Zealand are of particular interest to us because you see a combination of developed agriculture, technologies being adopted through all those geographies. And I think without exception, they're all facing some form of water stress or another. And so we try to participate in all those geography across a very wide range of crops. We have a great interest in California because of the current situation and because of the diversity of crops that are grown. But if you look, as I alluded to earlier, if you look at the adoption of technology, California is actually far ahead other areas of the world. And so we think we can actually bring quite a bit of value to the central plains of the United States, where the Oglala Aquifer is being overdrawn. Mexico is going through a tremendous crisis right now with water availability. So we definitely have a global focus when it comes to deploying our technology.
No, that's very helpful, John. And when you think about the adoption curves, are people thinking about adoption differently this year because of the headline issues? We had La Nina, as you mentioned, droughts across the world. I remember reading a news story. Some people talk about fake news, right? I read a news story about a fire in Siberia last year, and I'm thinking, okay, that's definitely not true. But it was. So there's dryness all over. So, you know, do people have a greater sense of, wow, this is a good idea. Smart water systems are the way to go. Do you think there's a sort of a greater recognition in the past couple of years?
For sure, for a number of reasons. I think in areas where drought has been a predominant challenge, it's water availability and the need to manage that resource very precisely. I think there's a stronger interest in sustainability at the producer level, because more growers are seeing the value in regenerative agriculture, and they understand the economic value in not washing fertilizers out of the root zone and the resulting pollution impacts on their own property as well as downstream. And I think you know, farmers are becoming more focused on managing inputs more precisely. They're running the farm like a factory. So everything that gets put on the farm is analyzed. I know a number of very progressive growers in California. They are so precise in their practices. It's really pretty amazing. So I think those three main elements: sustainability, you know, economics and profitability, and water scarcity, are driving a lot of changed attitudes about managing irrigation systems.
Another interesting point is the explosive move in fertilizer prices over during, you know, the grain run. One would think that if there was ever a time to conserve inputs, it might be now. Oleg, do you think about that as well? And when I think about what John mentioned on the you know, the call it sustainability or call it just more efficient conservation of plant nutrients, and if you conserve what you need to put on and it doesn't leach, then it does help the environment. But, you know, do you look at fertigation, chemigation? Is that part of the you know, deliverable that you have to customers as well, recognizing that that's probably more of a developed market issue?
So we don't deal with any type of new age irrigation systems like for irrigation, as you said, but we do deal with the question of not washing out fertilizer out of the root zone is a very important question that we also try to deal with. Our system is actually partially built around this specific problem. But as far as the general climate change situation, and as far as it drives the decision of farmers, I'm sure that this is part of the way that a farmer would think about creating a better world in general, like any other person in the world. But more specifically, farmers do look for technologies that would solve their own problem that they have currently, like as Don said, getting water 700 miles from point A to point B, and then the cost of that water and the related costs of pumping from deeper wells, etc., etc. This is something that that farmers see as a problem that they currently have right now, and they need to solve it right now, and they're willing to try out technologies. Unfortunately, not all technologies are able to help from a myriad of reasons, because some of the technologies are not suited for this specific problem, and you know, the companies just look for anyone to buy from them. And from other cases, the technology is not suitable for the region or for the area or for the specific farmer. As Don again said, every farmer is the same, but on the other hand, they're all different.
Right. So
they
you
all
walk
have
into
their own issues and their own problems. And when it comes to adoption of technology, it very much is important that the technology will be suitable for the situation. There is nothing else to say. We can create any amazing technology we want. If it doesn't suit the specific situation of a specific farmer, this technology will fail at this point. That's it. That's the failure.
There is a follow-up question to what you just said, Oleg. We have actually a couple of questions in the chat box. So sticking to what Oleg just mentioned about being suitable, having the right technology for the right situation, for the right farmer. So one of the questions we have from an anonymous attendee is really about the technological aspect. And he wants to know, how do you adapt your technology for different terrain type, like topological conditions? And how are you going to optimize for the best output? Depends on, here in California, most of the farms are on flat land, at least from what I know, what I see. I know, Oleg, you have experience in other places around the world, and for sure also with CropX. So how do you adapt to topological differences? And
well,
if you can address
the answer, yes, the answer to this question is very much complicated.
Well, this
very
is why
much
we're
complicated. Yes, it very much depends on where exactly this area is, etc. But the basis of at least how we see technology, and again, we are just a small company from somewhere, and we see technology to be it needs to be as simple as possible, and then the main obstacles of operating it would be removed. Specifically with the different topologies of different areas, it very much depends on the infrastructure that exists. It depends on the crop that is being grown on this specific infrastructure. It depends on the availability of water and the direction of water and a lot of things. And of course, the technology would be adaptable to this area, if at all. As I said before, not everywhere our technology is absolutely perfect and suitable. But if it is, it can be adapted usually, well, I'll say the truth. With our technology, either it's easily adapted or it will not work there. This is how it works. Either it's installed and it works and it's suitable for the situation and the infrastructure, or it's not. And then we just don't bother installing.
John, how about CropX?
Yeah, same basic answer. I think it really depends on the, I think the question was around topography in particular. We do have models that enable the system to predict what's going to happen based on soil type and topography. If you're talking about an extreme situation like hillside cultivation of wine grapes, that's a bigger challenge. But generally speaking, we've advanced the artificial intelligence and the algorithms to the point where topographical influences are factored into the recommendations we make. We improve, the system over time. But I would just repeat what Oleg says. It has to work for the farmer. It has to be easy to install and simple, and be intuitive for the user and provide valuable data. Otherwise, it's not going to be adopted widely at all.
Thank you for that. There is another question, which I would love to hear what Ken and Don have to say about this question. I would say it's more on the philosophical aspect, leads to maybe government or leadership decisions that lead to technology development. So we have a question from Patrick asking, he's very interested to know how the panel sees the interface between smart water systems and the growing carbon market. For example, we all know the greater water conservation leads to greater stewardship, but is there a way of claiming a carbon sequestrating in the process? Very tough question.
So maybe I'll take a stab at it first.
Okay.
So in California, the state government has a program called the Healthy Soils Program, and additional money was just given to it if the legislature approves for $100 million. And this program is about increasing organic matter, sequestering carbon, and getting growers to try new techniques. It doesn't go to the next step, which is claiming credit for the carbon that you're sequestering. But I think I tend to believe that that is going to come. We've seen different iterations of it, and usually it hasn't been enough financially to attract a grower to go after that as another income stream. That may change in the future, but we're talking about funding hedgerows, cover crops, reduced tillage, nutrient management, whole orchard recycling, where we take almond trees once their life is not useful. And in the past, we used to push them together and burn them. That will be totally illegal to burn anything at 2025. So we're seeing funding to incentivize growers, I think, to do the right thing, to, like with the case of tree crops, grind them up, spread them back on the land, and incorporate them down into the soil to sequester that carbon for quite a long time. So we're seeing California trying to guide and show growers that these types of farming are possible, and to incentivize them to give it a shot. So,
Ken?
So, Don, I think the way you answered that is a very good way to look at it. For me, I have questions about whether a carbon exchange provides net change positive difference on carbon to begin with. So I've talked to Pat about this in the past. Pat, thank you for the question. I'm not trying to be evasive, but I'm just I'm dancing a little bit here. First, if industrial polluters reduce that and they were more green in their systems, then the standing up an exchange probably wouldn't be needed, right? What I think about, though, if I take a step back and just think holistically, if growers are conserving water, monitoring carbon, sequestration and smart carbon farming, if you will, then there ought to be a financial incentive for that, be it in the form of a differentiated product, a differentiated price at market. And I guess what I would say optimistically is this is probably the first time in maybe forever that conservation-oriented farming and financial stability, economic sustainability, and environmental sustainability seem to all be together with an opportunity for there to be a triple win. So again, I'm not exactly sure what the right path forward is, but if you're conserving water, optimizing input usage, reducing the runoff, lowering your cost, and selling your product at a rising rate where we see commodity prices rising, that means margins expand. And I'm kind of a simple guy. So if you can do the right thing and maximize margins, then farmers doing the right thing will get paid more just on the law of economics, right? So that's kind of how I think about it. But again, it remains a very dynamic area, and I am at least encouraged that a number of companies are trying to crack the nut on carbon. I think there's exciting ideas. Most of you know me. If there's an opportunity to change for the better, I'm all for it. So I'm encouraged by these ideas and these interesting solutions that people are considering. I'm just not sure yet if it's the exchange or if it's the different mechanism to maximize to minimize carbon leakage and maximize profits for growers.
Thank you, Ken, for that answer. Of course, thank you also, Don. I think that will be a good time for me to mention. You talked about technologies and some fundings that are available. So I want to let our audience know about two ways to get funds from 2 different binational foundations that exist for the past over 40 years now. One of them is the BIRD Foundation, B-I-R-D, and the other one is the BARD Foundation, which is B-A-R-D Foundations. The BARD Foundation focuses solely on agriculture. The BIRD Foundation is more general, but they also have right now a call for companies. The deadline for submission is this coming September, which sounds like a long time, but it's not. And basically what those 2 foundations do, they provide grants. The BIRD Foundation is up to $1 million per project, as long as there is one entity who is Israeli and one entity who is a US-based company. Doesn't have to be company, it can be a research center, it can be a farm, it can be a university. So basically those foundations provide non-dilutive grants for R&D projects for 1 year. And they have currently called for companies. And one of the things that we can do to help you is find a partner. So if you have any ideas, if any of you is thinking about developing some technology, solutions, products, and so on, please feel free to reach out to us and we will be very happy to support you with finding partners and provide you with more information about the application process. I'm going to put the website on the chat box so everybody can see it. So just to mention that, following what Don was mentioning about working together and Ken about finding new technologies and how to try them in the market. Ken, we have about 5 more minutes until the end of the session. I'll let you continue.
So thank you, Sharon. My questions are all done. I will humbly say that I thought we covered a lot of interesting ground here. You know, Oleg, John, Don, you all brought up some themes about both customization, but also the ability to have a turnkey. So those are 2 different things. It probably takes a lot of money and genius to be able to have a turnkey for multiple types of farmers, but I think that's encouraging. The next thing is that I took away was that certainly if there was ever a time to think about conserving water on a global scale, certainly now. I would just invite the panelists if there's any closing words or thoughts or takeaways that I may have missed that are front and center to, please raise your hand and let us know.
Okay, maybe John, we can start with you with some final thoughts. You've been working with Israeli technologies for over a decade, right? Different companies. You are, you know the market. You come across so many different technologies and potential customers and government officials and so on. What would be your advice for other Israeli technologies that would like to come into the US agtech market?
Well, I think Don hit on a few. I think finding and affiliating yourself with professional trade associations that have a technology incubator of some sort would be strongly recommended. So Western Growers, California Almond Board would be two that I would recommend. I think if you can find a very progressive university, if it's not in California, if you're focused on another crop, finding researchers that have a strong connection to producers would also be an area that I would focus on. And I think the third is there's usually an infrastructure of some sort that you have to rely on. In the case of California, there's a very, very professional group of distributors operating throughout the state. I would suggest meeting them as quickly as possible, getting their feedback. They know a lot of growers. They have their finger on the pulse. They know what's required, and they can provide, I think, very valuable access to the marketplace. So these are three things that I would strongly suggest.
Thank you, John. Don, a question for you with your official hat. Looking at the next, let's say, 2 years, I'm not going too far. What are the three main areas where, and I know you know Israel and I know you know Israeli technologies and obviously very familiar with California, But where are there three main areas where there is funding, there is need, there is an urgent opportunity, there is the opportunity. I know we talk about smart water systems, but within smart water systems, there are so many different solutions that can be used. What are the two main areas that there is really an opportunity to support the local market here in California?
Thank you. That's a tough question.
And by the way, it's not true just for Israeli companies, you know, the technologies in general coming to California. What will be the savior?
No, I agree. You know, California is the apple. I think everybody wants to get into California with their technology. And, you know, for the most part, growers are on board. They want the technology. We still deal with fully automated systems. It's easy, really pretty easy in permanent plantings. You know, pistachios, almonds, walnuts, wine grapes. You put your system in place. Nobody really disturbs it that much. But when you start talking about some of the other specialty crops, you know, we grow a lot of canning tomatoes. We grow carrots, onions. Some of these other crops, we'd love to automate the irrigation. We'd love to be more efficient, I think, in those areas. And the reason I say it's difficult is those crops may only be in for 120 days. You know, we may be using subsurface drip tape, lay flat, things that are very mobile, movable. So they're in one field for 6 months. We shift them to another field. We put new tape in every time. Somebody ought to love that. But I'd love to see something that is flexible enough to where we could implement it on some of the other crops that are more difficult to work with. I think the need is there. I think the growers are definitely willing to give it a try. The other thing that I'd love to see is, you know, one dashboard, have open technology to where, you know, if we start doing work with a tech company, I want to be able to put it on one platform so that I don't have 20 different apps that I have to look at to turn the water, to schedule irrigations. To me, that's a big time saver, and have them be flexible, but also have financial strength. We don't want to start dealing with a company and find out a year later that, you know, they didn't make the cut, they're out of business, or they don't have somebody here in California that we could deal with. So there's so many different things that go in making a company successful. Our joke is that we have technology providers bring us answers for problems we don't have. So, so you have to be careful. You have to know your audience.
Yeah, I guess that's true for, you know, almost any industry. Oleg, well, let's stick for a second with the technology and referring to what Don said. As someone who did not grow on a farm, you know, an engineer that decided that this is his passion, solve the problems in agriculture. What would be your advice for, you know, people like yourself with technical background that want to transfer or want to focus on the ag tech market? What are the first things that they need to understand? Because AI can be implemented in different areas, right? So why agriculture? What drew you to that world?
So it's important to understand that we started our system without any AI. The idea was to create a very simple device that can do a very specific thing well. That's it. Now, about people that actually want to go into AI and
agriculture,
and specifically agriculture, there is a problem of tagged data. Okay, tagged data basically means that in order for AI to be able to learn how to do something, it needs the results. Okay, so basically, like you teach a child. You say, so you see, you do this, and then this happens. And if this doesn't happen, then it's wrong, right? This is how you teach a child. You teach anyone like this, right? And specifically for AI, you need a lot of examples. This is the AI is basically the future of big data, right? So you need to start with big data, and then you have a lot of situations of how to do something, right? And in agriculture, the tag that you are looking for is a good crop, right? I want at the end to get the best possible crop. Now, the problem with this is that you need enough data before you build the AI that shows how to create the best possible crop. Each crop cycle takes a year, usually, and AI needs tens of thousands of examples to be able to learn anything. So it basically translates into tens of thousands of years of crops. Now, usually people say, yeah, but I can take samples from like 10 different fields, and then I need 10 times less years. That would be true if what Don said before was not true. Each farmer is the same, but each farmer is a little bit different, and he's enough different for AI to mostly fail in agtech as far as collecting huge amounts of data and then trying to create a recipe. For me, myself, maybe I'm not knowledgeable enough. I'm probably not knowledgeable enough. But I haven't seen a system that is based on true AI and is consistently and universally effective for agriculture. I haven't seen that yet. So as far as AI goes, just not yet.
A lot of trial and error. Thank you, Oleg, for that. And thank you, John, for participating. And of course, Don, Ken, some last remarks?
Certainly. Well, it sounds like, Oleg, we're going to open up a technology tailor shop, where you get measured, tailored, fitted, and then, each client and customer has the ability to have a consultation and then a project, deliverable on that. Look, things, it's a pattern that, it's a situation that is not unique to ag. Other industries are like this too, but it's especially interesting for ag. I would just say, Sharon, I was delighted to moderate this. Thank you to all the panelists and to you all for hosting one of many conversations that we'll have in the future. And hopefully, Don, we can come to your ranch with a group and see some solutions in action and then see what you think about them. So we'll hopefully one day do that. So
love to have you here.
Thank you all for being here. Once again, this session was recorded and will be available on the CICC YouTube channel. If anyone has questions, want to get more information about those available non-dilutive grants, please feel free to contact the CICC for more information. We'll be happy to help you with that. If anyone is interested to learn more about the agtech market here in California and the agtech market in Israel, again, follow the CICC activities. We have many discussions, many opportunities to be part of what we do. We have a virtual exhibition that is running year-round. And hopefully, soon enough, we can host our friends from Israel here in California or take our friends from California to visit Israel. For now, thank you all for being here with us and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.